Hi. Okay, I'm here. I've already made two. I practiced, but this is how I throw plates. And honestly, normally I just have fun throwing plates and just like very organic, and I just like whatever they want to be. But I'm actually trying to throw sets of matching plates, so I actually have to think about what I'm doing. Now, first you have to take a little piece of clay and put it on these little screws on the wheel because they hold these bats in place. And I just take little baby bits of clay so that this thing's kind of stabilized. You put this on the wheel. And this is for people who maybe don't appreciate how much work goes into making one item. And mind you, I have at least 2 decades of experience doing this at this point, but like as a hobby, not as a profession. Just like high school, and started it up again like 2 or 3 years ago. But so it was a 4 pounds of clay. I actually measured out each ball so they're the same size. And get a little bit of water. And centering, you have to brace your elbows on the wheel. Push the clay down. And make sure I don't get clay all on me. Okay. And so I'm wedging like a kind of like a straight edge this way as I compress this way, and the centrifugal force helps me push this down. Now this pin, sometimes these like the bats, the plastic thing that this I'm trying to throw on, sometimes they just don't feel level. I'm at a studio, so unfortunately they have been used a lot. And I should probably just buy my own, but I'm just gonna add a little bit more clay. This is a good trick. You just add little bits of clay underneath the edges. That helps. You can also use a bat pad, which is like a little like type of fabric that you put under that kind of creates a little bit of a padding, kind of like a rug pad if you had carpets at home. So now it seems to have done the trick. It's not wobbling as bad. So again, I'm pushing in as I compress. There's something that's gripping my hand on the board here, but I don't know, I'm working around it. Hopefully this won't turn out bad. So whenever the base isn't perfectly symmetrical, it throws off everything, but I can usually kind of work with it. And I've already done this thing called wedging the clay, which is where you like kind of knead it like dough to try to get any air bubbles out. Sometimes I'll also do this thing called coning where you pull it up and do that down a few times, but I know that I pretty much got all the air bubbles out already. This feels okay in terms of centering. Like, it's not perfect. It bothers me a little bit. But again, I think it's the best I can do considering that I feel like this board, the plastic thing I'm throwing on feels a little warped. I hope the next, I'm gonna check them out. I just kind of grabbed some clean ones off the shelf. So anyways, I'm taking my fist and I'm gonna push it in the middle and just gently drag it out towards myself. A little more water. I push it in the center, and I just gently and slowly drag the clay out towards myself. You don't want to do it too, like you want to make sure that there's not too much of a gap underneath here so that it doesn't like trap stuff. So I've been trying to go like about that big in terms of centering before I start dragging out. So that I'm thinking about like underneath, like when I go to trim this, the excess clay, like how big of a base do I like? And so I alternate between using my fist to pull it out and just flat hands that I support with the other hand. And I'm just gently and slowly keeping it pretty level to compress it as I go. Now, if you always pull from the center out, we can get these things called stress lines, which means that you are always just working the clay in one direction, and that's just not like molecularly like stable. Like it's good to like push the molecules in both directions. So then I'm going to take my time and gently, and I kind of like doing this a little more spread out, I gently kind of push it back in towards the center. So I start from the center out towards the edge, but then I also, and I give myself a little bit of room because I'm going to use that extra to make the lip later. Then I kind of start from the edge and work my way back into the center as well. Now when I do that, you can kind of see I leave my other thumb here just to kind of feel and stabilize myself. Like I'm just trying to like be aware of where everything is on the wheel. And this, I mean, this becomes like kind of a sixth sense to you after a while, but it definitely was not natural at first for me. Now, I also kind of like, I always like to kind of watch a few tutorials as a refresher before I throw plates, because they're actually one of the harder things for me to throw. It's just, I don't practice them that often, and I always just kind of like, it just reminds me of little refreshers, like you use a pin tool, and well, one of the videos I saw was like, you know, leave at least half of your height still on the wheel because you're going to trim it away. This plate, I'm trying to make a large dinner plate, so I'm trying to go for 11 and a half inches total, because after it fires it's going to shrink down probably closer to 10. So by the inside of the lip I'm going to have be 10, and then the actual rim I'm going a little bit over a half, maybe like 3/4 of an inch, and so it's 11 and a half inches by like about like an inch and a half tall from the base of the board. But I take this and I can measure how deep it is. Now that's really pretty deep. I only want like a centimeter. So yeah, that's consistent. So I'm going to try to get this down there. So to do that, I'm just going to constantly, slowly pull out my clay and then compress it back in. This is fun. I'm throwing with a new type of clay that I've never worked with before either. It's got a nice consistency. There's different types of clay. Like most people like have heard of porcelain. That's pretty advanced to throw with. This kind of feels, I mean, this is white stoneware, so it will be white once it's fired, but it's not porcelain. But it is really soft feeling. Sometimes it kind of feels like, to me, porcelain feels like wet baby powder. It's one of the, I threw with it a few times and it's super, like you have to know and trust what you're doing to feel confident in it, in my opinion. This is starting to feel good and stay shape. This is pretty soft, but it's not like, so there's a stuff called grog, which is like little bits of rock that kind of adds to the stability, the grit, if you will, of the clay. That's like more for when you're just trying to, well, I don't know what it's necessarily just for that, but when people start beginning, they usually tend to throw with that stuff. This doesn't have as much grog in it, so it's a little bit more complicated, meaning that like if I throw and I don't compress as I'm throwing, this could just flop, but grog kind of helps it stay a little more stiff. So let's see, compressing. Okay. Just slowly working my way out. Let's see where I'm at now. I just like to put my excess. Okay, it's not bad, I'm getting there. Now I pretty much like doing this just strictly with my hands, but sometimes I'm trying to get better at using tools for leveling it out. I've had some really bad errors in the past where like it just catches like a little corner of your tool will just catch a corner and completely cut into it, destroy the entire plate. But I'm getting better and I'm playing around with this this tool. It's kind of just a piece of wood that's shaped, it's kind of like tapered at the edges, and there's like a flatter edge, and then as I go up to the lip, I just kind of turn it so that it kind of gently goes up the rim. I like to do that kind of several times. So see, I just caught the edge and got this little bit of clay. That's what I don't like doing, so I gotta be a little bit more aware of what I'm doing. I'm gonna do it more for the rounded edge. And it just kind of helps level out the plate. You can see like how this one's a lot more wobbly. On the other two that I made right before this, they honestly were not like this, and it's because the actual bat pin, like you can kind of see it actually. You can kind of see a little bit of a wobble on here, but that dramatically affects when the base is not stable. It dramatically affects what you're working with above it. So hopefully I can at least. I'm okay with making things kind of like look forgiving. Like clays can be forgiving in overall appearances, even though it's not perfectly balanced and symmetrical. It will look pretty decent. So now, just gonna do one more pull out and then one more compression in. Okay, feels pretty good. Okay, so now I'm gonna do like a little bit of a pull. So I'm grabbing with my finger and just gently, and I like doing the straight edge, I'm just gently, really trying to get underneath it. I'm encouraging the clay to go up in a compressed, symmetrical manner. This is how I kind of encourage the clay to rise. This plate seems different. Well, let me just check in. I'm going for 10 inches to the inside of the lip. So I have another 3/4 of an inch. Helpful if I could see what I was reading. Almost 10 inches. Another caught into it. I gotta be gentle. Sounds like someone's trying to come in, but the door might be jammed. There we go. Okay, I'm just gonna get into this rim here so it's a little bit more delicate in here. Okay. It's starting to collapse. See, this is the problem. It's kind of gently guiding it back up. Okay, are we 10 inches wide yet? I'm just going to gently, I'm supporting from underneath with my finger. And I'm going to help create a little bit of a lip. See how that kind of formed? Okay. It's about 10. Let's see if this is about 1.5 inches. It's a little low, so I'm going to pull up the edge a little bit. fingers to help guide it up, but compress it with the inside of my fingers. I'm compressing the lip so it's strong. I want to make sure the lips are strong. This looks pretty good. Let's compare one more time. I mean, the good thing is you get to trim that away at the end. Gently push that back in. So this one is okay. It's gonna conform to the dimensions that we wanted, but I don't love it. When I trim it, I'm gonna see if I can level it out a little bit better. Trimming can do a lot for a piece. But overall, it's good, it's consistent, so it's 11.5 inches total. From edge to edge, 11.5. It's 1.5 inches tall. And the inside perimeter is 10 inches. If I was holding it on the right side. Yep. Okay. So overall, this is a plate. Now to get it off, you take this string and you put it really flush against the piece of plastic and you gently turn the wheel on, and I'm pulling the wire underneath the plate. Okay, so I'm gonna let this dry enough so that I'll be able to take another plastic that, and I'll put it on top, and then I'll flip it over so that the bottom can dry out a little bit, and then I'll take my tools and I'll trim it. So that's pretty much it. Where's my, I lost my sponge. There it is. I'm going to put it in my water. So I'll clean this up just a little bit before I take it off. Try and keep it clean. That's a plate. And you can see this is my third plate of the day. Okay, well, hope you liked it, and I will maybe make a video later of me trimming them. Okay, bye.